Hello, and welcome to the Kemetic How-To Guide for Egyptian Pagan and Kemetic practitioners. I'm your host, Sharon. Last year, I learned about a new thing called Summerween for people who can't get enough of Halloween and want to carve jack-o'-lantern watermelons, I guess. I'm really not sure how to feel about the concept of Summerween because I love Halloween, and I love the specialness of Halloween, and I don't want to ruin it by diluting it over more of the year. And yet, when I walk into the local craft store in late June, what to my wondering eyes should appear but... You want to shop early for Halloween supplies, you got to start doing it in July. But you know what? I might actually have a use for all of these early Halloween decorations. So it's time for Sumer-Ween. In ancient Sumer, that's with one M, later in Babylonia and Assyria, the months that we know as summertime in the northern hemisphere, being July and August, were a time of drought and death. Nothing could grow. It was hot enough to kill you, as it is today in that part of the world. And they celebrated two major festivals for the dead during that time period. On the standard Babylonian calendar, which would later influence the Jewish calendar and the month names in Iraqi and Levantine Arabic, those months were named for the feasts that were celebrated then, being Dumuzi and Abu. Dumuzi refers to the god Dumuzi, who was a shepherd king and the lover of Inanna, Ishtar, who met a tragic death. The machinations behind it vary depending on the myth that's being told. In one version, bandits killed him and Inanna took vengeance upon them personally. But there's another version that's perhaps a bit more famous where Dumuzi didn't mourn for Inanna when she descended to the underworld, and so when she came back, he had to take her place. Well, lucky for him, his sister Geshtinanna also loved him very much and selflessly took up residence in the underworld in his place for 6 months out of the year. That leaves Dumuzi free to return to the land of the living and kiss and make up with Ishtar. The name Dumuzi reached the Levant, that is what's now Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Western Syria, that area. The name Dumuzi became Tammuz, and weeping for Tammuz was criticized by the prophet Ezekiel, who saw Israelite women observing that festival and observing that activity, and of course criticized it as a improper practice. Abu probably comes from the Akkadian word for fathers, and it's cognate with Av in Hebrew. And this was a memorial feast for the ancestors. It might have evolved out of a Sumerian festival of the canebrake, so called because one of the places where the ancient Sumerians would bury their dead was in canebrakes or marshes. So effectively the festival of the canebrake was Feast of the Graveyard. It's really easy to see where these Mesopotamian feasts of the dead share parallels with our modern festivals of the dead. Modern pagans consider Halloween / Samhain a time when the veil is thinnest and spirits can, roam the earth. It's easier to have contact between the living and the dead. Well, the same thing applied during the Feast of Dumuzi. That occurred during the last 3 days of the month when the moon was waning and became new. And that's because that was the point in their belief when the veil was thinnest. Now the Feast of Abu occurs 2 weeks later during the full moon of the next month, but that's still a point where, in their perception, the veil was thin, and spirits both friendly and malevolent could roam the earth, and so a lot of the observances that took place in connection with that had to do with exorcising, malevolent spirits, ghosts, even, witchcraft, or, people who might be trying to hex you. Those were times when you could get rid of those, and especially at the end of Abu, you had a maklu, fire cleansing that was meant to, get rid of things like that. And whereas modern pagans today will hold a silent supper in honor of the dead, you had an Elunum feast in ancient Mesopotamia that was held in honor of the blessed dead, and there were offerings that were made specifically for them and would be either buried in a specific place, or libations might be poured down a pipe that led into the ground where the dead were buried as a way to give them drink offerings. This was also a time, of course, when deities who were in charge of the underworld were honored. Dumuzi was actually a judge of the underworld. He was not the lord of the underworld like Osiris was in Egyptian belief, and we'll do a little bit more comparison between the two of them later this year. But another deity that would have been honored would have been Nergal, not to be confused with Nergal from Warhammer 40k, and Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, and, the wife of Nergal in later belief. One more interesting fact, our word ghoul traces all the way back to the Sumerian word gala, which refers to the demons from the underworld that drug Dumuzi back. And they were especially feared because, as the myth explained, they ate no offerings and they had no spouses or children to kiss. So they could not be bribed or swayed. What's interesting for us Kemetic pagans is that these two holidays often roughly coincide with the Wagi feast, which honors Osiris and Anubis, and offerings are made to the blessed dead. So there's a little bit of a parallel there. The Babylonian calendar was lunar, so it would vary a little bit, and next year actually is going to be kind of interesting because the spring equinox occurs right, it's so close to when the first crescent is visible that it's actually going to offset everything by a month, so it's going to start a little bit later, at least by what I reckoned, and there was a lot of head scratching and looking up lunar dates for that. So that's the Babylonian calendar for you. It's going to vary a little bit from year to year, but the Feast of Dumuzi tends to fall mid to late July, and the Feast of Abu tends to occur in August. And of course we use a fixed calendar for Kemetic reform, so the Wagi feast is always in early August. So there are some years where it coincides very closely with the Feast of Dumuzi. So if you find yourself browsing the arts and crafts stores or the dollar stores during the summer and you find a whole bunch of Halloween or fall themed decorations, pick a few of them up for holiday displays of a different kind. And if you're tired of watching things wither and die in your garden in the summer heat, you might want to consider observing a Mesopotamian Feast of the Dead, in honor of the season. Or you can do what I did one year, and sort of mishmash between the Feast of Dumuzi and the Feast of Osiris. I talk more about that and about the Feast of Dumuzi and the Feast of Abu and by the way, you might hear me saying it with a little bit of an M because there's a variation on it. It'll be Abu or Abum. I've found references to both. And I talk about it in Praise of Ishtar, which is on Lulu, and I am working on recording an audiobook for it, and I'm going to make that available with captions for those that might, need to actually see some of the words in there that YouTube is not going to know how to caption those. Tell me what it does with names like Dumuzi and Abum. Is it figuring out how to caption those or not? So I'm working on my own version of that, and I'm going to put that probably on Patreon, but I will let you know as I get a little further into that project. But it is available in print. Go on Lulu. I include a link to it in the description for this video. And remember, there's I wrote all this myself. It took me 3 years to do it. There's no AI involved in this or any of the work that I do. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't just put a digital copy of it out there, is because, if digital pirates weren't enough of a problem, now you have to worry about AI mining, for material. And, I work too hard to give that away for free. So, remember, that link is in the description. And another thing that I want to make sure to do is a super happy dance. Say thank you for all of my lovely, lovely super folks who give me super stickers. Thank you, because you are supporting this channel and the work that we do. And you're awesome. And we love you for it. And be sure to check the description for links to my Zazzle store. I just put some brand new things in that store, some back to school supplies and some new and improved t-shirt designs, a whole lot of other great stuff. And there's also a link to my sister channel, Golden Age Video, and lots of good things on there too. Next month we're going to be back with a how-to for absolute beginners to Kemetic paganism. So make sure to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss that when it comes up next month. In the meantime, for the Kemetic how-to guide, this is Sharon wishing you serenity.
Enjoyed this video? Then be sure to hit like and subscribe to the Kemetic Independent channel. You can also buy my books on Lulu.com, and special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Join us for updates, outtakes, and exclusive videos only on Patreon. Check the description for links.